News Prime Headlines is brought to you by Milo.
Tonight on Joy News Prime, Ghana's Supreme Court's decision to dismiss the NDC's relief for the use of the existing voter's ID card continues to draw mixed public reaction after an earlier misinterpretation of the court's ruling by the General Secretary of the NDC.
The court has just delivered a verdict which has granted our request for the inclusion of the existing voter card as reader document for the compilation of the register.
I mean, clearly, it's only a person who perhaps did not have an understanding of what the court said today who could make such a conclusion.
We have details as Deputy Attorney General fight off claims government is behind the Electoral Commission's decision to compile a new register since the NPP had always wanted a new electoral roll. Also coming up, is Ghana at the peak of coronavirus infections? National Coordinator of the Coronavirus Response Program says no.
Why do we think it will peak? And really the true answer is I don't know.
All right, and if you don't want to be a statistic, rush to the hospital when you experience minor COVID-19 symptoms. This is because 60% of all COVID-19 related deaths in Ghana happen within 48 hours of patients' arrival at the health facility.
More than 50-60% of all the deaths occur within 48 hours of admission.
And coming up later on in business.
Yes, I will be telling you how a Ghanaian flag vessel with 6 crew members got attacked off Benin coast.
Part of a One Village, One Dam project currently under construction in the Upper West Region town of Domini, washed away by torrential rains less than 2 weeks into its construction.
We really are in need of the dam. When they came to start the construction, the entire village was very happy. This is, if it is fixed, it will be a major source of water for the community.
My name is Gifty Andopia. We are live in our studios here in Kokomlemle on digital address GA0992539. On digital terrestrial TV, we are free to air. The bulletin is also live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV 144. Please stay with us. Welcome to the details of those stories and more. Now, the Supreme Court has in a unanimous decision ruled that the Electoral Commission's decision to exclude the existing voters' ID is valid. The court also said the Commission has the power to compile a new register and can go ahead with the exercise slated for June 30. Private citizen Mark Techi Benson and the NDC had asked the Apex Court to stop the Electoral Commission from compiling the register or allow the use of existing voters' ID card and birth certificate. Court correspondent Joseph Akable has the rest of the story.
The Commission in its legal arguments stated that the existing voter register, which was compiled in 2012 and revised since by limited exercises, has been held by the Apex Court as not being reasonably credible. Deputy Attorney General Godfred Yeboah-Dame urged the Apex Court not to impede the EC's quest to obey the law. The 7-member panel that heard the case was presided over by the Chief Justice Kwesi Enin Yeboah. Other panel members are Justice Jones Doche, Paul Bafuboni, Sule Badegbe, Samuel K. Mafusau, Nene Amegacha, and Professor Ashikote. The court in its decision held that the EC is an independent body and will only be directed by the court if it acts contrary to law. It said the commission can carry out the registration exercise in accordance with CI 126. This CI excludes voter ID card and birth certificates, but allows the use of passport and a Ghana card as source documents for prospective voters. The NDC Sesiedu Nketia, however, had this understanding of the decision.
The court has just delivered a verdict which has granted our request for the inclusion of the existing voter card as breeder document for the compilation of the register. And I think that we are most grateful. I think that this is the most substantive issue for which we came to court. So we will get back to office and we will address a full-blown press conference on the consequential matters arising. Thank you very much.
How does it make you feel, General?
Well, we feel vindicated because the court itself, in an earlier ruling, has clearly stated that the possession of an existing voter's ID card means that the holder is a citizen of Ghana who is qualified to be registered and to exercise his or her powers. And so the court couldn't have gone back on its own earlier ruling. And it did also admit that the right to vote, once it accrues to a person, cannot be taken back in a whimsical and capricious manner in which the Electoral Commission sought to do.
There is currently just one case before the courts in relation to the compilation of a new register. This is the case filed by Ashaman MP Ernest Nogbe, which is pending at the High Court and due for hearing on Monday, June 29.
Joseph Akable with that report. The Attorney General's office has been speaking on this judgment. A Deputy AG Godfred Yeboah-Dame says the NDC clearly does not understand this decision.
For me, it can only advance democracy in the country in the sense that the very sense of democracy is the protection of the right to vote, and the right to the people to elect their representatives, to elect their president, in accordance with the hallowed principle of one man, one vote. And I sought to indicate at the last agenda that indeed the voters register has been shown to be over-bloated, and it has been so since 2012, and it was so again in 2016. It was also it is so presently. So it has been so since 2012. And if you look at 2012, the declaration results, the number of registered voters, as declared by the Electoral Commission, was about 14.1 million people. But the total number of Ghanaians over 18 years was, as per the statistics of the Ghana Statistical Service, 13.7 million. So the very obvious question one ought to ask is how can the number of Ghanaians aged 18 and above, who I consider to be the registrable population, be less than the number of total number of registered voters? That is incongruous. It cannot be. And the same pertained in 2016. The number of registered voters was about 15.7. Yet, Statistical Service indicates that the total number of Ghanaians aged 18 and above is about 15.2 million. And you remember that the NDC also was making a point in court that there is supposed to be about 80 million people on the voters register. That was unsubstantiated and totally baseless, because the evidence for the Statistical Service, which I furnished the court, indicates that the total number of Ghanaians aged 18 and above is 16.6 million people. So where from that figure? They just threw it up in the air without backing it up with evidence, and that's what the people of Ghana were made to believe. And so I think that the court ruling is very good. It protects the right of the Ghanaian to vote, in the sense that it shows that clearly it is intended to ensure that only Ghanaians who are qualified to vote indeed register to vote.
In terms of the ratio of the court, it affirmed the independence of the EC once it's not acting contrary to law, and again gave orders as to compiling the register in accordance with CI 126. I'm sure you have seen what the NDC's General Secretary has been saying. Are you surprised with the interpretation that has been put on the decision of the court, and what is the AG's position on the decision of the court?
I'm totally amazed at the ridiculous interpretation that has been placed on the court ruling by the NDC, especially NDC General Secretary. I mean, clearly, it's only a person who perhaps did not have an understanding of what the court said today who could make such a conclusion. It is quite clear. They have the ruling of the court before me, and you have to just match it against the specific reliefs that were sought by the NDC. And you see that clearly in terms of the substantive reliefs, they're all dismissed.
And we'll be doing a matching of the specific reliefs and what the court said. But for now, Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, Osei Mensah Bonsu, is jabbing critics who he says are misinterpreting the judgment by the Supreme Court in the NDC versus EC case. According to the majority leader, the ruling by the Apex Court of the land is clear, and it affirms the EC's position as stipulated in the CI 126 passed by the House.
To me, what I'm seeing here is what I believe is the truth, and this is certified from the Supreme Court. It says, with particular reference to the second relief that they sought in respect of including the old voters' ID card, the Supreme Court was unanimous in this, that the relief is granted subject to the fact that all eligible voters must make themselves available for registration as directed by the Electoral Commission pursuant to Public Elections Registration of Voters Amendment Regulations 2020 CI 126. As simple as that. What is contained in CI 126 is that they are saying they are going to rely on the Ghana cards, that is the identification authority cards, and passports. That's what is contained in that. So if the court issues this ruling that it should be pursuant to CI 126, who in his wildest imagination will go outside this ruling to say that, the old voters' ID card has been included? The facts speak for itself.
Majority Leader Osei Mensah Bonsu there. The minority spokesperson on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, Inus Afuseni, says the ruling by the Supreme Court is a victory for Ghana's democracy. He's insisting that granting of Relief 3 of the NDC subject to CI 126 means the existing voter's ID card must be admitted as a primary document for registration.
The NDC went to court to pursue certain reliefs. NDC was put to an election. NDC chose Relief 2. Relief 2 was based on something. And Relief 2 by the Supreme Court has been granted. The Supreme Court decision grants Relief 2. That was what we pursued in court. We didn't go to court to ask the Supreme Court to uphold CI 126. NDC did not go to court for the Supreme Court to uphold CI 126. NDC went to court and said that, look, if you look at the voter registration exercise to be carried out by the Electoral Commission, the Electoral Commission by CI 126 is seeking to remove from the list of primary documents for identification the existing voter ID card. And that existing voter ID card, which is issued pursuant to CI 91, derives its foundation from CI 42, and read together with CI 51, vests in the Ghanaian an accrued right. Immediately you are registered in Ghana, you have an accrued right to vote under Article 42 of the Constitution. The Supreme Court said, yes, we'll grant you that. What does it mean? Yes, so it means that, it simply means that CI 126 and the primary documents listed therein are relevant for the registration of voters as the decision to grant the accrued rights. That's all.
Inusa Fuseni there. Well, the Electoral Commission says it is all set for the registration to begin and nothing less than identification mentioned in the Constitutional Instrument 126 will be accepted on Tuesday, June 30, when the process begins. A statement issued a few hours ago by the election regulatory body said all stakeholders should prepare for the exercise next week. And here are excerpts of that statement. It says the Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision today, Thursday, the 25th of June 2020, dismissed the cases brought against the Electoral Commission. The Supreme Court directed the Commission and all its stakeholders to comply with Articles 42 and 45 of the 1992 Constitution and CI 126, Public Election Registration of Voters Amendment Regulation 2020. The statement goes on to say, for the avoidance of doubt, CI 126 spells out the requirement of proof of identification for the purposes of registration. It states as follows: 3. A person who applies for registration as a voter shall provide as evidence of identification one of the following: A passport; 2. B, a national identification card issued by the National Identification Authority; or C, one voter registration identification guarantee form as set out in Form 1 of the schedule that has been completed and signed by 2 registered voters; and A, by the substitution for sub-regulation 4.4. Despite paragraph C, it goes on and on. A registered voter shall not guarantee the identity of more than 10 persons. Essentially, the number of people someone can help to register. It goes on to say that as a commission which believes in the sanctity of the law, we respect the decision of the Supreme Court. In the words of the court, the Electoral Commission, in exercising their discretion in the charge of their constitutional mandate in cleaning the voters' register, should be deemed as authorized to be acting within the law and regulations therein. And so it's the Electoral Commission takes this opportunity to assure its stakeholders that the voters' registration exercise will start from Tuesday, 30th of June 2020 of the 6th of to the 6th of August 2020. The Commission entreats all stakeholders to hold themselves in readiness for the voters' registration exercise. It finally adds that the Commission will enforce strict safety protocols at its registration centers across the country so as to protect applicants from the COVID-19 pandemic. May God bless our homeland, Ghana. It ends, and it is signed by Sylvia Ano, Acting Director of Public Affairs. Early on today, private legal practitioner Samson Ladi Ayinene said the Supreme Court's ruling is clear and unambiguous in pointing out the fact that the registration for the new voter roll will be done without the existing voter ID card.
Now, as the discussion we had, back end, if you look at what the NDC asked for in the court, just look at 2 of the most important things they asked of the court and ask yourself whether those 2 important reliefs were granted or they were dismissed, denied, or refused.
Okay.
Once you answer that those reliefs were not granted, but they were dismissed, denied, or refused, therein is your answer and the summary of all this needless controversy. And the summary is that Electoral Commission is to go ahead with its registration exercise using the CI that has just been passed in Parliament. And let's not waste anybody's time. Bottom line, the court says, Electoral Commission, you had planned to do a voters register process. Please go ahead and do the voter registration exercise. Use the CI, constitutional instrument, which Parliament just passed, to do it. What does that CI say? It says you must use your Ghana card, you must use a passport, or you must have a guarantor. Simply, this is what it is. So the EC is going to go ahead in the manner that it planned, using the CI that it got Parliament to pass. End of story.
And as it were, the Electoral Commission says it is beginning the process next week. So here is a summary of the reliefs that Samson mentioned, the reliefs sought by the NDC and the responses that they got from the Supreme Court. So Relief 1 says the NDC wanted a declaration that the EC can only compile the register once and has no power to prepare a fresh register. The court says withdrawn by plaintiff and so struck out. Relief 2, the NDC wanted a declaration that EC's power to compile review register must respect and protect the right to vote. Court says yes, but subject to what the new CI 126 says. Relief 3, the NDC wants a declaration that upon registering and being issued a voter ID card, a person has an accrued right to vote, which cannot be taken away in an arbitrary and capricious manner. The court says yes, but subject to a voter ID issued under the new CI 126. Relief 4, the NDC sought a declaration that all existing voter ID cards are valid for identifying persons in the exercise of the right to vote. And what did the courts do? It denied that relief. Relief 5, declaration that the new CI's exclusion of existing voter ID cards as proof of identification is unconstitutional and a nullity. The court denied. Relief number 6, the NDC sought a declaration that EC excluding the existing voter ID cards from proof of identification is arbitrary, etc. The court denies that. And Relief 7, a declaration that proof of identification should not be limited to what the new CI says. The court denied that one. And Relief number 8, NDC sought an order that the EC must include all existing voter ID cards as one of the documents serving as proof of identification. The court denied that one also. In the meantime, flag bearer and leader of the National Democratic Congress, John Dramani Mahama, shall address the nation on the Supreme Court's ruling on the matter of the compilation of the new voters register at 8:30 p.m. We'll be here to bring you that live as and when it happens. Moving on, Inspector General of Police James Opon-Bueno has served notice to political actors who have plans to disrupt the upcoming general elections to ditch those plans or face the wrath of the police. The IGP is advising political parties that feel aggrieved during the electoral processes to only resort to the laws that regulate the country's electoral process and not to resort to lawlessness, he said. Mr. Opon-Bueno was speaking at a meeting with executives of political parties today.
No, some 15 political parties represented by founders and national executives attended and contributed to the meeting. The political parties include the governing NPP, leading opposition party NDC, the CPP, and 12 other political parties. They pledged to operate within the law.
We actually have been assured by the Inspector General of Police that the previous brutalities we have seen and professionalism by the police in some of the circumstances would not be witnessed again.
We pointed out certain issues that are happening now that, if not well addressed, can compromise the peace.
The IGP has given us assurance for the political parties as well as the nation that all infractions leading to the election before or after will be addressed.
IGP says whoever flouts the law during the electioneering period will not be spared.
The stakes are always very high when it comes to elections because everybody wants to win. As a result, some acts of lawlessness, such as snatching of ballot boxes, intimidation of voters, attacking voters or electoral officials, destruction of electoral materials, okay, in some countries. Let me assure you that we will be ready to deal with whoever perpetrates any of these actions.
The IGP also warned political parties to stop obstructing justice by organizing supporters to mass up at police stations when one of their own is arrested.
Organize supporters to mass up at police stations to extend solidarity to arrested colleagues friends or persons invited by the police for questioning. This, I must say, ladies and gentlemen, offense against the law. Because that actually obstructs the lawful execution of the police, the work of the police. I know that obstruction of a police officer is a criminal offense.
I pledge myself in all things to uphold and defend the good name of Ghana. So help me God.
Sandra Esinam Apeno is connecting from home with business news.
When I was young, I asked my mother the secret of hair vitality and health. She said, the right food, the right exercise, the right amount of sleep, and the right blood tonic. Nescafe Blood Tonic is effective for the treatment of anemia, lack of appetite, and stressful conditions in both adults and children.
Nescafe Blood Tonic, the right family blood tonic. Another quality product from Ernest Chemists. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
This is what too much data from Vodafone is like.
What? You say Jai, it became putu. You know what? There are plenty extravagant pre-wedding photo shoots on social media. They had all this lovey-dovey hashtag. Hashtag, I'm his fufu, she's my light soup. You see now? Missy, their photos were everywhere. WhatsApp, hey. Instagram, way. Facebook, hey. Hey, this is my battery. After all this, the guy didn't even show up for his own wedding.
You better sit down for what I'm about to tell you. It is shocking. The man is...
Oh! Too much data is now double the data at the same price with too much data for the day and too much bonus from midnight till 4 a.m. Get 3 GB data for 10 cedis, 8 GB data for 20 cedis, and 20 GB data for 50 cedis so you can stay home and stay connected. The only thing you need to worry about is keeping your battery up.
Discover the new Nivea body oil in lotion. Precious Nivea oils meet deeply moisturizing lotion in rich cherry blossom, vanilla, and rose scents for silky smooth and beautifully glowing skin. New Nivea body oil in lotion. Awaken your senses.
Get more care for less with 15% off roll-ons, shower gels, and 400 ml lotions.
Accidents do happen. It could be a motor accident, a sudden heart attack, or even a stroke, or any other health emergency. The first steps you take are very critical. Should you be involved in or witness an accident, call 112 for the fastest ambulance response. With over 300 well-equipped ambulances all over Ghana, you are assured of the fastest response to your emergency calls. Call 112 during critical health emergencies and save your life and that of your family and loved ones. 112, help will come. 112, we are safe. Avoid prank calls as they can lead to loss of life of persons in actual need of help. Be a responsible citizen.
The COVID-19 pandemic is still with us. Stay alert. As we welcome some of you back to school, here are a few things to note to stay protected. Always wear a mask to cover your nose and mouth. Do not wear your mask on your chin. Wash your cloth face mask daily. Avoid touching the front part of your mask when in use. Do not share your face mask with your mates. Avoid touching your nose, mouth, or eye with unwashed hands. Surgical and N95 masks are not to be used for more than 8 hours. If you're using one made with fabric, wash it in warm soapy water as often as possible. Remember not to use the same mask for more than 12 hours. Dispose of quickly any used tissue into a bin. Do not spit around. Wash your hands with soap and the running water regularly. Use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer frequently. Cover your mouth with a tissue or bent elbow anytime you cough or sneeze. Observe personal hygiene. Do not shake hands or hug anyone. Always keep a distance of at least 1 meter from any other person. Do not share personal items with your mates. Do not leave campus if not necessary. Inform your house or hall master or mistress if you feel unwell. Do not self-medicate. Eat nutritious foods with fruits and vegetables. Register your name daily in the attendance register. Avoid crowded places. Sleep well and avoid stress. Do not give out names of your mates with COVID-19. Let's show concern and love. Welcome back to school. This public announcement is brought to you by Ministry of Health, Ghana Health Service, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Information, and our partners.
Welcome back to Joy News Prime. Let's head home to Sandra. Sandra, what's in business?
Hello, Gifty. Welcome to my home. Yes, we're getting some reports that some pirates had hijacked some fishing vessel that belongs to Ghana. And so we'll be hearing from authorities as to specifically what they know about this incident. And welcome to business. My name is Sandra Estinam. And reports say pirates have attacked a fishing vessel and seized 6 crew members, among them 1 Ghanaian. The vessel was attacked off the coast of Benin, according to news sources. The report added that these pirates kidnapped 5 South Koreans and a Ghanaian after boarding their fishing vessel off the coast of Benin. So let me just once again run by you what we know so far. There's a Ghanaian among the 6 crew members that were hijacked, and then the vessel was attacked off the coast of Benin. It's a Ghanaian flag vessel called the Panofi Frontier and has about 30 crew members on board. The Ghana Port and Harbour Authority, we are trying to get to them to get some answers. And then I have Chief Superintendent Joseph Entry Abebiu, Commander Marine Ports and Railways Units of the Ghana Police Service. He will be giving us some answers. If you haven't, sir, good evening and thanks so much for your time. Hello, sir. Okay, so while we try to get him back on the line, I was saying earlier that we have some bad news where a fishing vessel that belongs to Ghana with 30 crew members had been hijacked off the coast of Benin. And then we have been joined, thankfully, by Chief Superintendent Joseph Entry Abebiu, Commander Marine Port and Railways Units of the Ghana Police Service. Thanks so much for your time this evening, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Can you confirm or deny this report that we are getting?
Yes, I can confirm that I have also heard there had been attack at the fishing vessel at the port waters of Benin.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Yes. Can you repeat that again? I didn't quite get you.
I said that I can, based on the point that you are mentioning, I confirm that I've also heard that a fishing vessel was pirated at the waters of Benin.
So what more can you tell us about this vessel? We understand that it has 30 crew members. And then what this actually means, does that mean that if some people have been picked off the vessel, does that mean that we'll not have it back in Ghana? Or when are we expecting it back in Ghana? And what do we do from there? Looks like we're having some issues connecting with Chief Superintendent Entry Abebiu. Let's move on to do other stories related to the Maritime Authority. And then Managing Director of the Ghana Maritime Authority, Thomas Kofi Alonse, is asking for public support to enhance the work of seafarers who risk their lives on the marine waters. He says the coronavirus outbreak has placed much pressure on the operations, hence the need for support. He was speaking at a media event to celebrate this year's World Seafarers Day in Accra.
Seafarers Day is celebrated every 25th June by United States member countries to appreciate the contribution of seafarers in their country's GDP. This year's event is under the theme, Seafarers are key workers, essential to shipping, essential to the world. Managing Director of the Ghana Maritime Authority, Thomas Kofi Alonso, said, seafarers must be given the necessary support and recognition for their hard work.
Under normal circumstances, the Day of the Seafarer campaign is organized to demonstrate how much seafarers matter to us. On those special days, social events and activities are organized to honor the enormous sacrifices they make for our comfort. With the unprecedented situation of the current global pandemic, this year, the Day of the Seafarer campaign calls for the recognition of seafarers as key workers within the context of the coronavirus pandemic. It also advocates for seafarers the provision of support and to ensure that seafarers are given the recognition they deserve for keeping the world moving in these trying times.
He underscored the need for recognition for their selfless dedication towards economic growth, especially in the wake of the global pandemic.
In these challenging times, seafarers have been the unsung heroes of this pandemic as the world relies on them to transport about 80% of trade by volume, including vital food and medical goods, energy and raw materials, as well as manufactured goods across the globe. As they continue in this heroic profession, they have become collateral victims of the crisis, as travel restrictions have left tens of thousands of them stranded on ships or unable to join ships.
The Day of the Seafarer campaign is focused on paying tribute to seafarers during this COVID-19 era.
Let's go back to our earlier story and speak to Chief Superintendent Joseph Entry Abebio, who is the Commander Marine Ports and Railways Unit of the Ghana Police Service. Grateful having you back on the line, sir. I was asking earlier, if you can hear me, where do we move on from here? Does that mean that we're expecting the ship back in Ghana? And then because we understand that 30 members were on board, so now that 6 have been kidnapped, are we expecting this ship back in Ghana and when?
All right. Good evening. Thanks for having me again. Yes, the Ghana Navy has set sail to the distressed vessel and bring it back to the port. And when they are able to arrive at the port, probably tomorrow morning, then we'll go in and do with the crew members, and we'll be able to give actual account as to what happened and confirm the number on board at the vessel, and we'll also be able to state categorically which people, the pirates, their makeup and their nature, and how they were able to enter the vessel. Meantime, all the information that you have stated, that's what we have also heard from the various maritime media portals that we have. But we have to get there and do the briefing before we'll be able to confirm all those facts about it.
And talking about getting details, have you been able to contact anybody on board, or what has it been like? Were you able to get somebody, or having difficulties reaching any member on board?
Yes, we are having getting anybody on board because normally when pirates attack like this, they normally disturb all the communication equipment that the vessel have so that they will communicate to other people. But the Ghana Navy has already set sail to meet that distressed vessel, a fishing vessel, and bring it to port.
Right. If I may just ask you, what's the current state of the country's vessel management system? How are you able to communicate or receive information?
So normally, the maritime domain, we use AIS system to communicate with other vessels, and then those are the various institutions that monitor our maritime domain. So that is what we use now.
I'm asking because I want to know whether it's in good shape, because we've had some reports in the past that the country's vessel management system is not in a good shape. So I'm just wondering how you're able to communicate with these people.
No. Aside police, Ghana Maritime Authority is the lead agency for this maritime security, and they even have an advanced version of. Apart from the AIS, they also have a vessel traffic management system, VTMS, which also the other security agencies have it, and that can also be used to communicate with other people. But aside that, military, the marine police, Ministry of Fisheries, they all have AIS systems that they use to also communicate with vessels.
All right, Chief Superintendent Joseph Antwi Abebio, Commander Marine Port and Railway Unit of the Ghana Police Service. We are grateful for your time this evening. I will certainly come back to you tomorrow to see if the ship actually will arrive or it will arrive as expected. But that's how we end the first part of business. I'm certainly back after 8 p.m. with more business news updates. My name is Sandra Esinamakin. Thanks for watching.
Certainly, thank you, Sandra. We'll come back to you much later in the on the bulletin. But still watching Joy News Prime. We're going to take a very quick break. We'll be right back.